The encounter. The wind screamed across the frozen valley, carrying dust, ash, and memories of war. For months, the planet Theral 9 had been nothing but a graveyard of broken machines and forgotten dreams. Amidst the silence, a lone human named Eli Cross trudged through the wreckage, his boots sinking into the snow-coated ground. He wasn't a soldier, not anymore. He was a scavenger now, a man who searched the ruins of battles to find anything he could sell to survive. Eli moved carefully between twisted metal and shattered hulls, his breath forming little clouds in the icy air. The scanner on his wrist blinked weakly, searching for energy signatures. He followed the signal toward a half-buried alien escape pod, its silver hull cracked open like a wound. It looked ancient, as if it had been lying there since the war ended. He tapped the metal with his glove and heard a faint sound inside, like a whisper, soft and trembling. He froze, his heart thudding. At first, he thought it was the wind playing tricks. But then, he heard it again, a voice, weak, broken, pleading. "Please, don't take my clothes," the voice said. Eli blinked in disbelief, his hand tightening around the handle of his old plasma cutter. The voice was definitely alive. Someone was inside. He crouched near the hatch and used his light to peek through the crack. There, huddled in the corner of the pod, was a girl, not human. Her skin shimmered faintly like liquid silver, marked with glowing veins of faint blue light. Her hair was pale and fell over her face, hiding her eyes. Her clothes, torn and burned, clung to her trembling body as she tried to cover herself with a thin metallic blanket. Eli's throat went dry. He had seen aliens before, soldiers, officers, and medics, but never this close. Never like this, fragile, afraid, and alone. Her translator device blinked on her neck, repeating her plea again in broken human language. "Please, don't take my clothes." He stepped back slowly, feeling a strange twist in his chest. Humans had been told that aliens were monsters, cold, cruel beings who saw humans as animals. But this girl looked like any frightened soul trying to survive. He turned off his cutter and raised both hands to show he meant no harm. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm not here to hurt you." The girl flinched at his voice, her luminous eyes finally lifting toward him, wide, scared, and filled with confusion. Eli saw the frost gathering on her fingers, her breathing shallow and quick. She was freezing to death. If he left her here, she wouldn't last an hour. He took off his thick jacket and placed it near her. She stared at it, then at him, uncertain if it was a trick. Eli sighed, kneeling beside the pod entrance. "You need warmth," he said quietly. "It's not safe out here." When she didn't respond, he carefully leaned forward, draping the jacket around her shoulders. Her skin felt cold, almost icy, but beneath it, he felt a faint pulse. For a moment, she stopped shaking. Her eyes softened, as if she didn't understand why he was helping her. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then whispered, "Lyra," her voice trembling through the translator. He nodded. "Okay, Lyra, we need to get you out of here." He looked around the valley, seeing only gray sky and endless snow. His small shelter wasn't far, a hidden bunker he used when storms grew wild. But carrying her would be hard. He offered his hand. Lyra stared at it, unsure. Then slowly, she placed her delicate, glowing fingers in his rough, calloused palm. The warmth of that small gesture broke the wall between two species. Without another word, he lifted her gently, wrapping her in his coat. She weighed almost nothing, light as air, and her head rested against his chest as they moved through the storm. The wind howled louder now, biting through his clothes. Each step felt heavier, but Eli didn't stop. He could feel her heartbeat, faint and steady. She whispered something in her own tongue, maybe a prayer, maybe a thank you. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning. By the time they reached the bunker, his muscles burned. He pushed open the rusted metal door and stepped inside. The warmth of the old heater hit them instantly, filling the air with a faint hum. He placed her near the small fire pit and checked her pulse again. Her skin had regained a hint of color, and her breathing had slowed. She opened her eyes slowly and looked around the dim room. Eli knelt beside her, giving her a small ration bar and water. She took it hesitantly, sniffing before eating. When he turned to check his scanner, her voice came again, quiet, uncertain. "You didn't take my clothes," she said. He smiled slightly, shaking his head. Didn't need them, he said. You needed them more. Lyra tilted her head, studying his face as if trying to understand a strange kind of kindness she had never seen before. She touched his hand briefly, then whispered, "Humans, not monsters?" Eli looked at her, the faint firelight reflecting in his tired eyes. "No," he said softly, "not all of us." Outside, the storm raged on, hiding them from the world that hated both sides. Inside, two strangers, one human, one alien, shared warmth, fear, and the fragile beginning of something that neither of them could name. That night, as Eli sat awake beside the fire, he couldn't stop thinking about her words. "Please, don't take my clothes." He realized she hadn't been afraid of dying. She'd been afraid of being humiliated, of being stripped of dignity by another species. And for the first time in years, Eli felt something he thought he'd lost: empathy. The storm outside screamed like ghosts of war. But inside that small bunker, hope quietly took its first breath. The rescue. Morning light crept through the cracks in the bunker walls, cold and pale. Eli opened his tired eyes to the soft sound of breathing beside the fire. The alien girl, Lyra, was still asleep under his jacket, her silver-blue skin glowing faintly in the dim light. She looked peaceful now, nothing like the frightened being he had found in the wreck last night. He watched her for a moment, wondering how many more like her were lost out there, freezing and alone. The war had ended years ago, but peace had never truly arrived. Humans scavenged what remained, and aliens hunted their own survivors to hide their shame. Eli didn't belong to either world anymore. He had fought once, but he was done with killing. Yet now, fate had placed this fragile alien girl in his path, and somehow he couldn't turn away. Lyra stirred and slowly opened her eyes, blinking at the soft firelight. Her translator clicked as she spoke weakly. "You stayed." Eli gave a small nod, adding fuel to the fire. "Couldn't leave you to the storm," he said. "You wouldn't have made it." She looked down at the oversized jacket covering her, confusion and guilt mixing in her glowing eyes. "I thought humans hated us," she whispered, her voice trembling through the translator. Eli gave a tired smile. "Some do," he said. "Some just hate surviving." She tilted her head, not understanding, but the warmth in his tone seemed to calm her. He handed her a cup of warm water, and she took it carefully, as though the cup itself might be a trick. After a few small sips, color returned to her cheeks, and her breathing grew steady. Outside, the storm had eased, but the cold still cut through the air like blades. Eli knew staying here too long was dangerous. Patrol drones scanned the wastelands daily. If they found an alien survivor in his care, both of them would disappear forever. He started packing his small bag, checking his rifle, rations, and the old map on his wrist screen. Lyra watched him silently, trying to read his expression. "Where are you going?" she asked softly. "To get us somewhere safe," he replied. "There's a cave system in the southern ridge, no sensors there." Lyra hesitated. "You will take me there?" "Yeah," he said. "But you need to walk, can you?" She tried to stand, but her legs trembled, the cold still biting through her thin body. Before she could fall, Eli caught her gently, steadying her against his chest. For a moment, her hand clung to his arm, and he felt the faint warmth of her pulse through the metallic shimmer of her skin. "You're weak," he said. "We'll rest another hour." Lyra looked at him with a strange curiosity, as if studying a creature she had never seen before. "You risk your life for me," she said slowly. "Why?" Eli paused, not sure how to answer. Maybe it was guilt, maybe loneliness, or maybe something else, something human. He simply said, "Because I can." As the day went on, Lyra grew stronger. Eli cooked what little food he had, dried grain and melted snow, and offered it to her. She hesitated before eating, then smiled faintly after the first bite. "It tastes like home," she said, her eyes distant. "Not the food, the kindness." Eli didn't reply, but inside, something warmed in him too. Later, Lyra examined the broken translator on her neck and tried to repair it. Eli watched her move her glowing fingers with delicate precision, connecting wires and circuits made of unknown metal. She had skill, calm, focused, professional, not just a survivor, but someone trained. "You're not a soldier, are you?" he asked. She shook her head. "I am medic," she said softly. "I was sent to heal, not to fight." Eli's expression darkened, thinking of the medics lost during the war, both human and alien. Guess we both ended up fixing what others broke, he said quietly. As night approached again, the temperature began to fall. Eli wrapped the remaining blankets around Lyra and prepared his weapon for any danger. Lyra watched him silently, her glowing eyes reflecting the flicker of the fire. You have killed before, she said, her tone not accusing but curious. He didn't deny it. Yeah, he said, too many times. She lowered her gaze, whispering, so have we. For a long time, neither spoke, the silence heavy with unspoken regret. Suddenly, a faint beep echoed from her wrist device, a dying distress beacon. Eli's head snapped toward it. What is that? Lyra's face went pale. Signal. Automatic, she said quickly, trying to shut it off. But it was too late. A small blue light blinked on the device, sending a pulse into the sky. Eli cursed under his breath. You just told the whole sector we're here. Lyra's eyes widened in fear. No, only my people can track. A sharp sound outside cut her off, a hovering drone scanning through the snow. Eli grabbed his rifle and motioned for silence. The faint hum of the drone grew louder, sweeping lights spilling through the cracks of the bunker. He moved close to the door, ready to fight or flee. Lyra reached out, grabbing his sleeve, her voice trembling. Don't fight them, please. Eli looked at her, then back at the door. If I don't, we're both dead, he said, his voice low and firm. The light passed over once, twice, then drifted away into the fog. The drone didn't detect them, or maybe luck was finally on their side. Eli lowered his weapon slowly, exhaling in relief. Lyra's hands were shaking, not from the cold, but from guilt. I didn't mean to, she whispered. I only wanted to go home. Eli turned to her, his expression softer now. You will, he said, but not today. He took the beacon and smashed it against the wall until it stopped blinking. Then he looked back at her, his face half in shadow. If we're going to survive, we do it my way, he said. Quiet, careful, together. Lyra nodded, her glowing eyes meeting his. Together, she repeated, the words sounding strange but powerful from her alien tongue. Outside, the snow began to fall again, silent and endless. Inside, two fugitives, a human and an alien medic, shared the first fragile alliance of trust. Neither knew that the pulse from that beacon had already reached farther than either imagined. Beyond the frozen clouds, something ancient had heard it, and it was coming for them both. The connection. The storm had passed, leaving behind a silent, frozen world. Morning light touched the metal walls of the bunker, painting them in pale gold. Eli sat near the fire, repairing a broken heating coil, his hands steady but his mind distant. Beside him, Lyra quietly watched, her silver eyes reflecting the flame like tiny suns. The air between them was no longer filled with fear, only quiet curiosity. For the first time since the crash, Lyra spoke without hesitation. Your world, always this cold? She asked, her voice soft through the repaired translator. Eli looked up, a small smirk on his face. This isn't my world, he said. It's just where I ended up. Lyra tilted her head, her expression thoughtful. So, you are lost too, she whispered. Eli didn't answer right away. He stared into the fire, remembering the faces of the friends he'd lost during the war. Lost wasn't the right word, abandoned was closer. But he didn't want to drown her in his pain. So instead, he handed her a small piece of metal, a broken transmitter core. You were fixing this yesterday, he said. Still think it can work? Lyra's eyes lit up faintly. Yes, she said. It can talk between species if we connect the frequency chip. She brushed her fingers over the broken edges, her touch glowing faintly blue. Eli watched, fascinated. It looked like her skin itself carried energy. In a few minutes, the small device hummed to life, whispering soft static into the room. He smiled. Guess you're smarter than you look, he said teasingly. Lyra frowned slightly. Is that insult or compliment? Eli chuckled quietly. A bit of both. For the first time, Lyra smiled. A small, uncertain expression, but genuine. It made Eli pause, as if he'd just witnessed something rare and beautiful. Hours passed as they worked together. Lyra helped repair his old radio while Eli taught her simple human words she struggled to pronounce. When she tried saying, thank you, Her voice trembled awkwardly. He laughed softly, correcting her pronunciation. She repeated until she got it right, and when she did, her eyes sparkled with pride. The sound of their laughter echoed faintly inside the cold bunker, a sound neither had heard in a long time. Later that night, as they sat near the fire, Lyra studied him closely. "Humans and my people fought for years," she said. "But I see. You are not what we were told." Eli raised an eyebrow. "What did they tell you?" She looked away, her voice quiet. "That humans take what they want, break what they touch, and burn what they cannot own." Eli's smile faded. "Yeah," he said slowly, "some of that's true. But not you," she added quickly. "You saved me." He looked at her for a long moment. "I didn't save you," he said. "I just couldn't watch another life fade away." She shook her head gently. "You don't see it, but you did." The room fell silent again, the fire crackling softly between them. Eli leaned back against the wall, closing his eyes for a moment. He hadn't realized how quiet his world had become until she arrived. Now, even her soft breathing felt like proof that he wasn't alone anymore. Lyra watched him sleep, her mind filled with confusion. Back home, humans were described as savages, dangerous and selfish. Yet here was one, risking his life for her, with no reward, no reason, only kindness. Curiosity pulled at her heart. She quietly reached out and touched his arm, tracing the scars along his skin. So many marks, old wounds, burns, cuts, each one a story he hadn't told. When he stirred, she quickly pulled her hand back, her cheeks glowing faintly blue. He opened one eye and gave a tired smile. "Couldn't sleep?" She hesitated, then said softly, "You have many scars." "Yeah," he said, "world's not kind to people who care." Lyra looked at the fire again, her voice barely a whisper. "In my world, they say kindness is weakness." Eli gave a low laugh. "Then maybe your world's as broken as mine." Something about his tone made her chest ache, a sadness too familiar. She didn't reply, but inside, something shifted, a seed of understanding between two lonely hearts. Outside, the wind had stopped. The silence was strange, almost peaceful, but Eli knew better. Silence never lasted long on Theral 9. He stood up and scanned the horizon through the bunker slit. Nothing but endless snow, yet his gut told him they weren't alone. Lyra noticed the change in his expression. "What is it?" she asked. "Trouble," he said, his hand tightening on the rifle. He switched off the fire and dimmed the lights. A faint vibration echoed through the ground, distant but growing stronger. Lyra closed her eyes, focusing. "That's not human," she whispered. "That's my people's frequency." Eli's jaw tightened. "So they're here," he said. "They found your signal." Lyra's eyes widened, torn between fear and hope. "If they come, they will take me," she said. "But they will kill you." Eli gave a half smile. "Guess that's nothing new." She reached for his hand, her touch trembling. "Then run," she said. "Go before they arrive." He looked at her, his voice steady. "I'm not leaving you, Lyra." She shook her head, tears forming in her bright eyes. "Why? You owe me nothing." "Because," he said quietly, "you're not just some alien anymore. You're someone worth saving." The words hung in the cold air, heavier than the silence. Lyra's lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Outside, the snow began to glow faintly blue, approaching lights in the distance. The hum grew louder, echoing across the valley. Lyra looked at Eli, her voice breaking. "If they find you, they will destroy you." He smiled faintly, loading his weapon. "Then they'll have to try." As the lights grew closer, Lyra felt her heartbeat race. In that moment, she realized something she had never been taught, that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe wasn't hate. It was compassion. And in that small bunker, surrounded by cold and silence, a fragile connection between a human and an alien burned brighter than any war could destroy. The discovery. Snow fell again that morning, soft and endless. The world outside looked calm, but inside the bunker, tension hung heavy. Eli paced near the door, his rifle close, his mind racing. Lyra sat by the dim fire, hands clasped together, trying to calm the unease in her chest. The faint hum from the night before had faded, yet both of them knew it wasn't over. Eli had learned to trust his instincts. War had taught him that quiet could be more dangerous than noise. He checked his scanner again, the small screen flickering with static. For a moment, there was nothing, only a weak signal line, and then it spiked red. Something was moving out there, slow but certain. A patrol. He crouched near the window slit, peering through the frost-covered glass. 3 human soldiers moved through the snow, helmets glinting, scanners sweeping the ground. Eli cursed under his breath. They weren't supposed to patrol this far out, not unless they'd been tipped off. He turned to Lyra, his voice low but sharp. Hide now. Her eyes widened. Where? He pointed to the back compartment, a small crawl space behind the power cells. Go, he whispered, and stay silent. Lyra crawled inside, pulling a blanket over the entrance. Her heart pounded, the fear of being discovered mixing with the strange ache of leaving him exposed. Eli moved quickly, tossing scrap metal across the floor to make it look like a scavenger's den. He dimmed the fire and pretended to fix an old transmitter just as the door burst open. The soldiers stepped in, rifles raised. Hands where we can see them, the lead soldier barked. Eli lifted his hands slowly, calm but cold. Easy, fellas, he said, just a salvager trying to stay warm. The soldier's visor reflected the flicker of firelight, hiding his face. This sector's restricted, he said. What are you doing here? Eli gave a tired shrug. Same as everyone else, trying not to starve. One soldier began scanning the room, his device beeping near the corner. Eli's stomach tightened. That was where Lyra was hiding. He forced a cough, stepping forward to distract them. Look, I found some alien scrap nearby, he said quickly. Worthless junk, but maybe it'll fetch a few credits. The leader turned toward him, suspicious. Alien scrap? He repeated. Show me. Eli opened a crate filled with broken circuits and burned metal, real debris he'd collected before. The soldier bent over, scanning the pieces, and the beeping slowed. For a moment, Eli thought it had worked. But then, the youngest soldier pointed to something shiny near the corner. A thin piece of fabric, soft, silver, glowing faintly under the light. Not human-made. Sir, the soldier said, what's that? Eli's heart stopped. He recognized it. A fragment of Lyra's uniform, torn during her rescue. The lead soldier's eyes narrowed behind his visor. He turned to Eli. You hiding something? Eli forced a laugh. Yeah, about 10 cans of rotten food and a lot of bad luck. The soldier didn't smile. He motioned to his team. Search everything. Eli's mind raced. If they opened that panel, Lyra was dead, and so was he. He needed to distract them. Now? He stepped closer, pointing toward the door. Wait, you hear that? He said suddenly. Movement outside. Could be raiders. The soldiers froze, listening. The wind howled outside, rattling the metal walls. In that split second, Eli moved. He grabbed a small flare from the shelf and slammed it against the wall. Light and smoke exploded through the room, filling it with red haze. The soldiers shouted, blinded by the sudden flash. Eli ducked, grabbed his rifle, and fired 2 quick shots at the ceiling lights. Glass shattered, plunging the room into near darkness. Lyra's heart thudded inside her hiding spot. She wanted to scream, but she couldn't. The soldiers fired back blindly, bullets sparking off metal. Eli rolled behind a crate, reloading fast. Then a heavy boot kicked him hard, sending him crashing into the wall. The flare's glow dimmed, and the smoke cleared slowly. Eli found himself pinned to the ground, a rifle at his throat. The lead soldier leaned close, voice low and furious. You're lying, he said. You've been harboring one of them. Eli gritted his teeth, blood on his lip. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. The soldier pressed harder. We tracked a beacon here, he growled. Don't play dumb. From behind the wall, Lyra covered her mouth to silence her sobs. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she heard the struggle outside. Eli's voice came again, rough but steady. If there's a beacon, it's probably from the wreckage. You think aliens leave gifts? The soldier hesitated, his scanner still blinking faintly. Another soldier checked the back panel but saw only tangled wires and frost. The flare smoke had hidden the exact spot where she was. After a long pause, the leader finally pulled back. Fine, he said. We'll search again tomorrow. He shoved Eli hard against the wall before turning toward the door. Next time we find proof, you're done. They left, slamming the door behind them, their footsteps fading into the snow. Eli stayed still for a moment, breathing hard. Then he whispered, It's okay, they're gone. Lyra crawled out slowly, her hands trembling, eyes wide with tears. "You could have died," she said, her voice breaking. He wiped the blood from his lip and gave a weak grin. "Wouldn't be the first time." Lyra stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Why protect me? They would have let you live if you gave me up." Eli looked at her, tired, wounded, but unbroken. "Because I've seen what they do to prisoners," he said quietly, "and I won't let that happen again." She didn't understand what again meant, but she saw the pain in his eyes. It wasn't just pity, it was guilt, something buried deep. She touched his hand gently, the glow of her skin softening the bruises on his knuckles. "You saved me twice," she whispered. He smiled faintly, shaking his head. "Don't count yet," he said. "We're not safe." Outside, far beyond the ridge, unseen by either of them, a dark ship glided through the clouds. It wasn't human, and it wasn't friendly. The beacon's signal had reached its mark, and soon, neither Lyra's people nor Eli's would be the only ones looking for them. Inside the bunker, the fire flickered weakly. Two fugitives shared silence once again. But this time, their silence wasn't just fear. It was trust, forged in the fire of danger. And somewhere deep inside, both of them felt it. The universe had changed the moment they met. The betrayal. The night stretched long and silent. Outside, the snow had stopped, but the world felt colder than ever. Eli sat near the dying fire, his bandaged arm resting on his knee, his eyes fixed on nothing. Lyra sat opposite him, wrapped in his jacket, her face pale and thoughtful. Neither spoke, yet both could feel the weight of what had just happened. He had nearly died to keep her secret. And now, deep inside, she carried another, one she could no longer ignore. Eli noticed her trembling hands and asked quietly, "You're shaking." She looked away. "I'm fine," she said, her voice hollow. But she wasn't fine, not at all. All evening, Lyra's wrist device blinked faintly under her sleeve. It was the distress beacon, damaged but still alive. Each pulse it sent was a whisper into the void, a call to her people, a promise of rescue. She had told Eli it was destroyed, but she had lied, because she couldn't let go of hope. Eli stirred the fire with a stick, sparks rising like tiny stars. "You should rest," he said softly. "Tomorrow, we move before dawn." Lyra nodded but didn't move, her eyes filled with conflict. She had seen too much kindness from him, too much humanity, and now she felt the burn of guilt deeper than the cold around them. When he finally drifted to sleep, exhaustion overtaking him, she stood quietly. Her glowing eyes reflected his sleeping face, peaceful for the first time in days. She whispered in her own tongue, "Forgive me." Then she lifted the broken beacon, reattached its power core, and pressed the signal key. A faint blue light blinked 3 times before vanishing into the sky. The signal was sent. Somewhere above the clouds, a fleet would receive it, and Lyra's people would come. But they wouldn't understand. They wouldn't see Eli as she did, not as a savior, but as a threat. Her hands shook violently, tears freezing on her cheeks. She wanted to stop the signal, but it was too late. Hours later, Eli woke to a strange silence. The fire had gone out, and the faint hum of the beacon was gone too. He looked at Lyra, who sat still by the wall, her face turned away. "What's wrong?" he asked, sensing the unease. She hesitated, her voice almost breaking. "I did something." Eli's heart sank. "What did you do, Lyra?" Before she could answer, a thunderous sound echoed from above, engines, deep and alien. Eli rushed to the door, his eyes widening as blue light filled the sky. "They found us," he whispered. Lyra's voice trembled. "I had to." He turned to her, disbelief and hurt mixing in his eyes. "You called them?" "They will take us home," she said. "You'll be safe." "Safe?" He cut her off, his voice sharp with pain. "Your people kill humans on sight." Lyra stood, her voice desperate now. "I thought they would listen. I thought they would see what you did for me." Eli shook his head slowly. "They won't listen, Lyra. Not to me, not to you." Outside, blue lights descended like silent angels, scanning the ground. The sound of anti-grav engines vibrated through the bunker walls. Eli grabbed his rifle and his pack. "We have to move," he said, but his tone was hollow. Lyra reached out, tears in her eyes. "Please," she said. "I didn't mean to betray you." He stopped at the door, his shadow stretching long behind him. Then why does it feel like you just did? He whispered. The ground shook violently as an alien shuttle landed nearby. The air filled with energy pulses, bright and deafening. Lyra cried out. They'll kill you if they find you. Hide. But Eli didn't hide. He stepped out into the snow, raising his rifle. He had been a soldier once, and old instincts came back like ghosts. The alien troops spread out, their armor shining blue in the storm light. One shouted something in their language, a command, and fire erupted. Eli dodged behind a wreck, returning fire, each shot burning through the cold air. Lyra screamed, running toward him. Stop. He's not the enemy. But they didn't stop. To them, she was a target gone rogue, a corrupted medic who sided with a human. A blast hit the ground near Eli, throwing him backward into the snow. He groaned, vision spinning, pain searing through his arm. Lyra rushed to him, falling to her knees. Don't move, she said, pressing her glowing hands to his wound. Blue light spread beneath her palms, sealing the burn. Eli looked up at her through the haze. You shouldn't have called them, he whispered. I know, she cried. I just wanted to go home. He gave a faint, bitter smile. You were home, he said quietly, before losing consciousness. The alien commander approached, his tall frame casting a long shadow. Lyra stood in front of Eli, arms spread wide. Don't touch him, she shouted. The commander's voice was cold. He is human. He will be detained. No, she said fiercely. He saved me. The commander paused, scanning Eli's unconscious body. Then he spoke into his communicator. Prepare containment, both of them. Lyra's heart broke as they lifted Eli, chaining him like a criminal. She wanted to scream, to fight, but there were too many. As the shuttle door closed behind them, she reached out through the bars, holding his hand one last time. I'm sorry, she whispered, her tears falling like glass. The engines roared, lifting them away from the frozen world below. Far beneath, the snow covered their footprints, the last proof that a human had once chosen compassion over survival. Lyra closed her eyes, her voice trembling through the hum of the ship. I betrayed him to save him, she whispered. But maybe I only destroyed us both. And somewhere between the stars, fate began to write the next cruel chapter of their story. A story of love, guilt, and a choice that would soon shake the galaxy. The return. The ship cut through the clouds like a blade of light. Inside, silence ruled. Alien soldiers sat in perfect rows, their armor gleaming cold and flawless. In the corner, Eli lay unconscious, his wrists bound in glowing restraints. Beside him, Lyra sat quietly, her head lowered, her hands trembling. The hum of the engines was the only sound. Every vibration reminded Lyra of what she had done. She looked at Eli, pale, bruised, still breathing, and her chest tightened with guilt. She had wanted to save him, but instead, she had led him into a cage. The commander, Varen, stood near the control deck, his deep voice echoing through the cabin. The human will be interrogated upon arrival, he said. He may have information on the scavenger networks. Lyra's voice broke the silence. He has no information. Varen turned, his piercing eyes glowing faintly. Then he is useless, he said coldly. And useless creatures have no place in our world. Lyra's hands clenched. Her people believed they were righteous, enlightened, but all she saw now was cruelty hidden behind discipline. He saved me, she said, her voice trembling but firm. Varen raised an eyebrow. A human saving one of us. He scoffed softly. You forget who destroyed our colonies. Lyra stood up, her body shaking. Not him, she said. He gave me food, warmth, life. The commander's tone turned sharp. Sit down, medic, before you shame your bloodline further. Lyra sat, silent but burning inside. She looked at Eli's face, calm even in chains, and felt the heavy ache of her heart twisting. When the ship entered orbit, the stars unfolded before them. Her home planet, Ithera, appeared in the distance, blue and gold, glowing like a promise she no longer trusted. Hours later, the ship landed on the crystal landing bay of the alien capital. Rows of guards waited, weapons ready. Lyra walked beside Eli as they were escorted out. He was awake now but weak. His voice came low, tired. Guess this isn't your idea of homecoming. Lyra's throat tightened. Please, don't talk. He smiled faintly, even in pain. You always say please. The guards shoved him forward toward the holding sector. Lyra followed, her rank barely enough to allow her entry. Inside, the walls shimmered with cold light, clean, sterile, merciless. They chained Eli to a stasis frame, blue light wrapping around his body like frozen fire. He didn't resist. He only looked at her once, not with anger, but with quiet disappointment that hurt more than words ever could. The commander turned to Lyra. You will report to the council, he said. Your involvement with this creature will be reviewed. She bowed her head, but inside, her thoughts screamed. When the doors closed, she ran back to the cell window, pressing her hand against the glass. Eli, she whispered, I'll fix this. He opened his eyes, meeting hers through the barrier. You can't fix betrayal, he said softly. Tears filled her eyes. I didn't mean to. He looked away, his voice quiet. I know. That night, Lyra couldn't sleep. Her world, the place she once loved, felt like a stranger. Every wall gleamed with perfection, but she saw only cages. She walked through the medical wing where wounded soldiers rested. Each of them had stories of hate, and she suddenly realized how blind they all were. They were healing bodies but poisoning hearts. In a dark hallway, a voice stopped her. It was General Kale, an elder she trusted once. You risked your life for a human, he said. Why? She looked up at him, her voice shaking. Because he risked his for me. Kale sighed. The council will not forgive this. Lyra, your bloodline could be erased. She met his gaze, calm and defiant. Then let it be, she said. I won't let them kill him. When Kale left, she went to the command terminal and opened a secure medical access. Her hands moved quickly, entering codes, bypassing security. Her mind raced. She could unlock his cell, disable the surveillance for 7 minutes. 7 minutes to save him. She took a deep breath, whispering to herself. He saved me once. Now it's my turn. Down in the holding level, alarms were silent and the corridors empty. Lyra moved like a shadow, her heart pounding in her chest. She reached Eli's cell, placing her hand on the scanner. The door shimmered, then opened with a faint hiss. Eli looked up in shock. You? She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. Please, don't say anything. We have to go. He hesitated, staring at her. You're risking everything, he said. Why? She stepped closer, unlocking his restraints, her voice breaking. Because I couldn't live knowing I destroyed the only good thing left in me. The chains released with a soft click, and Eli's arms fell free. He stood, weak but determined. Then let's make it count, he said quietly. Together they slipped through the corridors, the sound of distant guards echoing faintly. Lyra led him through a maintenance hatch, her glowing fingers lighting the dark path. Every second felt like forever, every step like a promise. When they reached the exit bay, the cold night sky of Ithera stretched above them, filled with stars and danger. Eli looked at her. You sure you want to do this? He asked. She smiled faintly through her tears. I already did. They climbed into a small shuttle, its engine whirring to life. As they rose into the clouds, alarms suddenly blared behind them. The system had detected the breach, red lights flashing across the bay. Hold on, Lyra said, gripping the controls. Eli looked at her, awe in his eyes. You're flying us out. She grinned weakly. You saved me twice, human. I only owe you one. Lasers cut through the clouds, chasing them as the shuttle weaved in dove. The sky burned with blue light, but Lyra didn't stop. She pushed the engines to their limit, the small craft roaring as it vanished beyond the city's border. Eli leaned back, breathing hard, the stars reflecting in his eyes. You're insane, he said, half smiling. Lyra laughed softly. So are you. As the ship broke into open space, the alarms faded behind them. For the first time in days, the two of them were free. But freedom came with a cost, and both knew the galaxy would soon hunt them. Lyra looked at Eli, her voice soft and trembling. I don't know where we'll go. He looked at her, his tone calm and steady. Anywhere you want, he said, as long as we go together. For the first time since the war began, the stars didn't look cold anymore. They looked like hope, shining quietly for two souls who had no home, except each other. The decision. The stars stretched endlessly before them, cold and bright like scattered diamonds. The stolen shuttle drifted between shadows of nebula clouds, its engines running low. Inside, Eli worked on repairing the controls while Lyra sat by the viewport, her silver eyes fixed on the distant planet glowing blue beneath them. They had escaped, but not truly. Freedom was fragile, a moment of breath before the storm returned. Eli wiped sweat from his brow, his hands steady despite exhaustion. "We can't keep running forever," he said, his voice calm but heavy. Lyra nodded slowly. "They will come." He looked at her, faint humor in his eyes. "Then we'd better make it worth it." She smiled weakly, her gaze drifting toward the stars. "I used to think humans were wild creatures," she said softly. "But maybe it's the wild ones who remember how to care." For a brief time, silence filled the ship. Only the hum of power and the faint rhythm of two hearts beating against fear. Eli checked the scanner. Red dots flickered on the edge of the map. "Contacts," he muttered. "Multiple, coming fast." Lyra's breath caught. "My people." He nodded grimly. "And humans too. Looks like they both found us." Outside, two fleets emerged from the dark, human destroyers on one side, alien warships on the other. The space between them glowed like dawn, filled with the light of ready weapons. Lyra's hands shook on the console. "They're going to fight." Eli stared at the display, his jaw tightening. "They'll destroy each other just to erase us." The comm channel crackled, voices overlapping, angry, fearful, demanding surrender. Lyra's father's voice echoed through the static, deep and commanding. "Lyra, my daughter, power down your ship immediately." She froze, tears welling in her eyes. "Father." His voice was colder than she remembered. "You have been deceived. Return now, before they execute the human." Eli reached out, placing a hand over hers. "Don't listen," he said quietly. "They'll never understand." She looked at him, torn between love and loyalty, between duty and truth. "I can't let them kill you," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Then don't." For a long second, she stared at the calm light, her heart hammering in her chest. She could surrender, end the chase, save him, save herself. But she saw the same pattern repeating, endless hate, endless lies. Her father had once told her that peace was impossible between species. Now, looking at Eli, she realized that was the greatest lie of all. She took a deep breath, her voice trembling. "Open all channels," she said. Eli frowned. "What are you doing?" "Something no one else ever dared," she whispered. The ship's system linked to both fleets, human and alien. Every screen, every radio, every command deck heard her voice. "This is Lyra of Ithera," she began, her tone clear but shaking. "I was told humans were cruel, that they destroy what they touch, that they steal, that they kill without mercy." Her voice wavered, but she continued. "But a human saved me when I had nothing left. He gave me warmth, food, and dignity when I thought I had none." Across the stars, officers and soldiers froze, listening. She went on. "You taught me to fear him, but he taught me to trust. You told me to hate, but he showed me compassion. And if kindness can exist between enemies, then maybe enemies never truly existed at all." The comms filled with static as both fleets processed her words. Eli watched her, eyes wide. "Lyra," he whispered, "they'll kill you for this." She looked at him and smiled, tears in her eyes. "Then at least I'll die telling the truth." An explosion of energy flared as ships began to reposition, confused and divided. Some lowered their weapons, others powered up, unsure what to believe. Eli gripped her shoulder. "They're locking on us." Lyra nodded. "I know." She activated the ship's signal amplifier, sending her message across all systems. "If this is the last thing I say," she cried, "let it be known that peace doesn't start with treaties, it starts with a choice, and I choose him." The scanners flashed red, missiles launched from both sides. The shuttle shuddered violently as alarms screamed. Eli grabbed her hand, pulling her close. "You don't have to do this," he said. She looked at him, her voice a whisper. "Yes, I do." In a final act, Lyra redirected the ship's energy core, creating a shield pulse strong enough to deflect the incoming blasts. The impact tore across the sky, blinding light filling the void. Both fleets halted, shocked by the energy surge, neither side understanding what had just happened. When the light faded, the small shuttle was gone. Only silence remained. And in that silence, both fleets withdrew slowly. Neither side fired again. Lyra's words had lingered in their minds like a wound that refused to heal. Weeks later, across human and alien space, her message spread like fire, a recording of her voice. Peace doesn't start with treaties, it starts with a choice. No one knew what happened to them. Some said the explosion consumed them. Others whispered that they escaped beyond the known stars. But one thing became certain, that a human and an alien girl changed everything. Not with weapons, not with power, but with compassion. And somewhere out there, beyond the reach of war, two hearts still wandered the stars together. The galaxy called it the Eli Lyra incident. But those who heard the story called it something simpler. They called it hope.